This week, I'm going to speak frankly about the stakes involved in the challenge to get into, to spread, and to apply the guide for this rare moment in history that was published last week on our website, revcom.us, titled Organizing for an Actual Revolution, 7 Key Points. This piece begins this way. Everyone who can't stand this world the way it is needs to be challenged to be part of the revolution that is the way out of this madness, end quote. The 7 key points are a concentration of the analysis, the principles, and the strategy, the roadmap that Bob Avakian has put forward in Something Terrible or Something Truly Emancipating. 2 futures concentrated in that 6-word title, Something Terrible or Something Truly Emancipating. Late last night, I watched the 4th day of testimony from the January 6th congressional hearings. I'm going to speak here of one aspect of that hearing to argue why you need to get into Organizing for an Actual Revolution, 7 key points, and take them up and spread them everywhere and be a part of applying them. So last night I watched this 4th day of testimony from the January 6th hearings, and I took serious note of the testimony of the arch-conservative Speaker of the House of Representatives in Arizona, Rusty Bowers, as well as that of the deeply conservative Secretary of State of Georgia, Brad Raffensperger. Both of these officials were responsible for ensuring that the elections in their respective states were fair, with the votes accurately tabulated. They each supported and voted for Trump themselves. Both sought to reason with Trump and his henchmen, arguing that Trump lost the election and that his schemes to overturn the election were based on falsehoods. Listen to Rusty Bowers, who, after he testified to the far-fetched illegal ways he was pressured by Trump to convene the Arizona state legislature to appoint illegitimate electors who would vote for Trump, when the law is that electors should represent who actually won the Arizona vote, which was Biden. These threats were not just political strong-arming, but Rusty Bowers said that every weekend he and his wife face groups who come by their home with
video panel trucks with videos of me proclaiming me to be a pedophile and a pervert and a corrupt and politician, and blaring loudspeakers in my neighborhood. I don't know if I should name groups, but there was one gentleman that had the 3 bars on his chest, and he had a pistol and was threatening my neighbor, not with the pistol, but just vocally.
The 3 bars on the chest of this thug stand for the 3 Percenters, who are a fascist paramilitary group. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger experienced similar vicious attacks on his family, tormenting his widowed daughter-in-law and her 2 children. Understand that while these officials stood up to Trump's demands, they are deeply reactionary, extremely religious politicians. In fact, Rusty Bowers testified,
"I will not play with laws I swore allegiance to, with any contrived desire towards deflection of my deep foundational desire to follow God's will as I believe He led my conscience to embrace. How else will I ever approach Him in the wilderness of life?"
Even after all the attacks that Bowers has been put through by Trump, Bowers said he would support Trump again if he were to be the nominee in 2024, because Trump did so much good. But here's the point. What does it tell us about the fascist nature of the Republican Party that they will carry out such thuggish intimidation and even violence against their own to enforce obedience to an outrageous criminal enterprise? The 7 key points succinctly says what and why this is so, quote, "Because of big changes in this country and the world overall, one part of the ruling class, represented by the Republican Party, has become fascist. They no longer believe in or feel bound by what have been the norms of democratic, capitalist rule in this country, end quote. Failing to take note of this misses the qualitative change that is in the offing should we fail to take up and apply what is in the 7 key points. But this was not all. The January 6 hearing then heard bone-chilling, heart-rending testimony from a black mother and daughter who were election workers from Fulton County, Georgia. What they were subjected to conjures the night riders of the Ku Klux Klan lynchers. Listen to what the daughter, Shay Moss, said.
A lot of threats, wishing death upon me, telling me that, I'll be in jail with my mother, and saying things like, be glad it's 2020 and not 1920. I received a call from my grandmother. This woman is my everything. I've never even heard her or seen her cry ever in my life. And she called me screaming at the top of her lungs, like, Shay, oh my God, Shay, just freaking me out, saying that there were people at her home, and they knocked on the door, and of course she opened it and seeing who was there, who it was, and they just started pushing their way through, claiming that they were coming in to make a citizen's arrest. They needed to find me and my mom. They knew we were there. And she was just screaming and didn't know what to do.
Note, these thugs pushed their way into her grandmother's home, and then Trump, in a phone call, called these 2 black women, election workers, hustlers. It is way past time for people to grasp what is unfolding and what is at stake here. People have not woken up to what is going down, including the qualitative change it will bring if half of humanity in this country loses the right to legally obtain a safe, legal abortion, and there isn't a major society-wide fight to reverse that course. And what I have spoken of here, the virulence and the hardening of the fascist movement and the full force of what it will mean for the right of abortion to be overturned, are but 2 related key features of a truly terrible future. More, it is the whole system that offers no answer. Point 1 of Organizing for an Actual Revolution's 7 key points begins like this, quote, brutal and murderous white supremacy, male supremacy, and other oppressive relations. The deepening crisis in society and the world overall, including the constant wars and continuing destruction of the environment. All this cannot ultimately be resolved in any positive way within the confines of the system that rules in this country and dominates in the world as a whole, the system of capitalism, imperialism, end quote. But this something terrible is not what I want to leave you with. It is not my main point, which is that there is within this terrible trajectory, with all the horror that it concentrates, the potential for something truly emancipating. This is not visible to the naked eye, but it is there, right inside the very extremeness of the situation that masses of people are and will continue to be forced to face, which holds the potential for people to be compelled to question the way things have been and whether they have to stay that way. And for this potential to be realized, everyone who is watching this show, everyone with a heart for humanity, needs to get into, to spread, and to apply Organizing for an Actual Revolution, 7 key points. This is the basic means for carrying out the strategy and the roadmap of something terrible or something truly emancipating. If we take this up and apply this strategy, then, quote, the currently small forces for the revolution that is urgently needed can grow in numbers and strength quickly in a concentrated way and become the powerful force that is needed to lead this revolution, end quote. 2 futures are posed. One is breathing down humanity's neck on multiple fronts with masses of people in this country in a state of paralysis. The other is the emancipating future. And this future depends on us, all who have come to see the basis and the need to change things through taking up the challenge and the charge of organizing for an actual revolution's 7 key points by waging, quote, ferocious struggle against ways of thinking that keep people chained to this system, winning growing numbers to break with all of that, while also mobilizing masses of people to fight against injustices and outrages that are continually committed under this system, and to stand up against the forces that perpetrate and enforce these injustices and outrages. Spread far and wide the inspiring vision of how much better life could be for the great majority of people if millions of people got behind this revolution and carried it through, making it possible to restructure all of society on a completely different foundation, with a radically different economic system, a mode of production, and emancipating relations among people as spelled out very concretely in the Constitution for the new Socialist Republic in North America, authored by Bob Avakian, end quote.